Hello and welcome to this wonderful AMA session, Ask Me Anything session for March. The year has already flown by and it's very exciting to be here. I'm just going to do that for you for a sec. Very exciting to be here. We have got a theme tonight. We decided to go for spring. So that means that it could literally cover any question that you wanted to ask us. We're going to be able just to sort of dive in, answer questions and see how we go. But, you know, with spring upon us, we were sort of thinking, well, what is it you're going to go out and photograph at the moment? Because we've had a long winter. It's been, you know, quite dark and dreary. So what is it that you photograph in the spring? You know, put that in the comments. Let us know. But also, you know, we're talking about, you know, maybe baby lambs. Maybe you're looking at golden hour, maybe sunrises or sunsets. That, you know, the mornings are brighter earlier, so you can get out a bit earlier in the morning, maybe before the work. You've got blossoms and all the sort of fledglings. So tell us what you think. Ask us any questions. And as I said, we can sort of go along and see how we get on as we go along. Now, we've got Michelle in the comments, which is brilliant. But we've also got with us today, we have got, oh, didn't mean to do that. Here we go. No, didn't mean to do that either. We've got Mike Amico from the US.
Hey, everybody.
You can tell I haven't done this for a while, can't you?
Yeah, we'll get into the swing of things.
Yeah, there we go. There you go. You can tell I haven't done this for a while. Normally, like, we've got somebody in the back end doing all this stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I've got to press buttons. I've actually got to do some work tonight, guys. So if I go blank and vacant for a while, apologies. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Same thing. It's been a while since I've been online. So last night I had a class, first time in almost 2 months. So we're all a bit rusty. We've all been on the road. So yeah, it's a great class to get us started again.
Exactly that. We need to waken up. And we've also got PJ, who is
hello.
Poland. Hey, PJ, how you doing?
Fine. Little thick, but fine. Waiting for Easter and good light, because from yesterday we have much better weather in Poland, and I can do spring photos now.
Yeah. And it is one of those things where, you know, we've been really busy, haven't we? We've had launch of 2 new products. We had the OM1 Mark II and the 150-600. So everybody's been on the road. Everybody's been sort of doing dealer shows. And we had our biggest show in the UK, the photography show. So yeah, I feel like we all need to sort of get back in it. It's I feel a little bit out of place and ready to start, obviously, a new year. So should we get into some questions, because the AMA is all about that. I'm just going to jump straight in and start at the beginning. Charles Blythe says, my whole digital life, I have underexposed by 1/3 of a stop. With film, I always overexposed ever so slightly. Today I read that I should overexpose for digital also. I have an OM1 Mark II. Well, I mean, it is always a matter of opinion, right? Because there's a little bit subjective in that. But with the amazing screens and viewfinders, I tend to find the only time I underexpose is if I want to physically like make that image that little bit more moody or whatever. But so I tend to not do that. What about you guys? What about you, PJ? What's your sort of feeling?
I underexpose all my picture always, and in my opinion, if you use any AA algorithm to denoise, like our denoise in OM Workspace, in Topaz or in Lightroom, this algorithm do better job on overexposed photos than underexposed photo than overexposed photo. But in critical situation, when I need to have bigger dynamic range and I need to take something from shadows or highlights, I always use Live ND or high-res, because this file give me much bigger dynamic range, and I can take out from shadows much more than from normal or raw file from OM1. And in this situation, I always try to have highlights in point and take out shadows in post-production.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think it becomes, a lot of personal preference as well, and the subject that you're shooting as well. I know some people that do expose to the right or overexpose a bit for birding, and then they bring down their highlights after because it helps with, different types of shooting and different ISO when you're in different situations with birding as far as the light and the dark and everything. For me personally, I keep it pretty much right on or a little under. It's just the way that I shoot. That's why I think it really becomes a personal preference. Whatever you're getting out of it that works for you, I always feel is the best way to shoot. I think everybody has their own, sort of comfort zone.
Yeah.
With their editing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Agreed.
If
Not that really answers it,
but in situation where I took picture children or birds or animals, and I have main subject to photography and very big light from back of the subject, I always don't look for exposure of whole picture, but only exposition in this point on exposition on bird, on kid, on something what I photography now, and what we'll have in background, it's second topic.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Good stuff. Right. Okay. I hope that has answered your question, Charles. We're going on to a really interesting one now. This is more going to be based out in the States, right? Because we obviously are not based in the US. So I would be interested to know if you know anything about this subject, Mike. I'm not gonna lie, it's a very tricky subject, right? Photographing solar eclipses. It's not about just going out with a camera and praying. So we have a good question from Michael Feldman, who says, do you have any tips on photographing the upcoming US solar eclipse? I've purchased an appropriate solar filter, but I'm curious how to focus and bracket exposures when either using a timer or a remote. Oh, there you go. What have you got there?
Oh, it's a really dark solar
filter. 1 million or 100,000.
And so how do you use that, Mike? I mean, you put that on the camera, the eclipse is coming. How would you set
you also want to have some glasses, right?
Right, of course. Yes.
During the time of the eclipse, you want to have that on your camera at all times, that filter, right? And your glasses as well. During totality, you could take that filter off. Because now the sun is covered fully, right? So it's tricky with the settings, and I haven't practiced yet, Michael, to be honest. So you can go out with your filter since you have it and start photographing the sun a little bit, and then also photograph the moon. But with the sun, you can practice with your focusing and things of that nature. Do I want to use manual focus? Maybe use focus peaking. Do I want to autofocus and then manual focus? So there's a few different things you want to play with. You definitely want a tripod. You want a solid tripod for this. I personally would recommend shutting off the IS when you're on a tripod, because I think it's going to be searching for movement and you want to be steady on that tripod.
Right.
So if you're nice and solid on that tripod, shut off the stabilization. That's just my on this. That's my take. And you want to start out at like 200 ISO. You want to start at your lowest ISO, right? From there, your exposure is going to be dependent on everything else. I mean, I might shoot it personally at aperture priority, 200 ISO. I'll probably be at like around 6.3 or f8, and then kind of go from there. So I'm thinking that my exposure is going to be anywhere from like 500th of a second to 1,000th of a second.
Right.
But I'm not quite sure yet. I got to play a little bit, but you're going to be somewhere in that range. And then totality is going to be a little bit different, because now you might have to crank your ISO up a little bit. For totality, what I'm going to do is use a separate camera,
right,
with a lens that already has the filter not attached.
Oh, okay.
So that way I could just pick it up and shoot it handheld. That's going to be my attempt. So we'll see.
So
I'm in Cleveland, so it's going to go right by me. So
it's a full eclipse that's coming then, Mike. It's oh wow, it's very exciting because
it's really cool. And
it's off the whole of the US coast. I mean, what's the
no, it's coming from Texas right up through to some of the Northeast. It's going right by my house. So yeah.
Ooh,
right about when I have a sales meeting, but don't tell anybody. So
there'll be nobody watching, I'm sure.
Yeah, nobody's watching.
Wow.
But yeah, it is a little tricky, but just go out there and have a good time. Try to practice before with the sun. As long as you have your filter on, you can do that. But I think it'll be a lot of fun. As far as bracketing, I haven't done that with the last eclipse. I didn't really have time to do that. I was kind of working with a group, with a store that was doing it. But I would probably bracket, definitely. I would set it for bracketing and allow the camera to bracket so that you can, definitely work with the different exposures, because there is going to be, especially in totality, a lot of different dynamic range you can work with. So it should be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to seeing images.
But, there's a lot of great articles online. So definitely look at some of the articles and go out and practice, take some notes, and you should be good.
What a nice way to kick off the spring photography.
Oh, yeah.
If you're thinking, I don't know what to do, I don't want to go out and do the usual. Hey, if you're in that zone, the solar eclipse has got to be the way forward. So I'm expecting good images. I mean, and you are right. If you've got 2 tripods, 2 cameras, obviously, then you can do that a lot more easily, can't you? But
sure.
Yeah, good info, Mike. Thank you for that. That sounds really cool. Okay, let's have a look. We have got, let's have a look here. Oh, this is a good one. Everyday life with the Bensons. I love that. What a great name. How well will the Olympus FL50R work on the Olympus Systems OM1? I have a new unboxed unit I bought to use for a wedding, shooting on my original Olympus E520. What do you think, PJ?
It will work very good. It's of course much more slower flash than actual flash in our portfolio, FL900 or FL700. But you can use, if you have FL-LM3, this small lamp, you can use this old lamp as remote. With RC mode. I think this is a good idea to use with OM1 without problem. If you want radio control on this lamp, you can use our controller FCWR for this lamp, but you need to put receiver under this flash. But this is a very good lamp I used to today, and I think this is a good idea to use it with OM1.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you think about that recycling, using old products, the fact that they are still available to use on the current cameras is actually really nice, isn't it? I know there's always issues when you change systems or when you change up from one thing to another. Everybody has to have change. There's always change in battery technology and stuff like that. So why battery, has changed, but that's really good, because we are talking 10, 15 plus years now for the 520, isn't it? So that's pretty cool. Thanks for that. Get some batteries in it and see how you go with it. That's what I reckon.
Only type photography what I don't recommend FL500 is sport, because it's too slow to start with sequential shutter in OM1, because OM1 is too fast
for it.
And maybe in very bad weather condition in macro, because our new lamp FL900 or FL700 is water sealed, and this is a better idea for macro. But in all different topics, I think this is a good idea to use this lamp.
Cool. Okay, cool. We've got a good question from Jim, and it's nice that we're getting a variety of questions tonight. So, it is a bit of an open session. We'll try and get through as many questions as we can. From Jim, who says, when traveling, how do I label and transfer my raw files from my OM1 to an SSD external drive? Who does that? I bet PJ. I bet you do that when you're on the road.
iPhone. I use iPhone, our app, image share application, and I plug SSD direct to iPhone or iPad and copy from iPhone or iPad to SSD. And this is the simplest way. In past year, I use very old Western Digital SSD drive with SSD reader built in, but now I plug SSD drive directly to phone and copy from camera by Wi-Fi.
And what about you, Mike? Do you do something similar, or are you a bit like me where everything just gets dumped on about once a month?
So I have a really weird pet peeve, and so this right here is just some of my newest SD cards, and those are all the raw files I've shot on those, no deletion. So from 2020 to 2024, I have every single card and micro drive and compact flash I've ever shot. Yeah, with all the files on them.
Piles of them just laying around the house.
Everybody has their quirks, and mine in photography is that I am the most unorganized photographer when it comes to files. Yeah.
Right. I mean, everybody knows I dropped a hard drive a couple of years ago on Gavin's studio floor, and it wasn't until I dropped the hard drive and it broke that then I realized, oh my Lord,
oh no, my file.
I got it all back, but what I meant was that I need to be more careful, and I need to be good at that housework, because the housework is so important. And now I'm on it. I've got a new sort of desk drive, and it's better.
You're way ahead of me, light years ahead of me.
Every picture in free copy in 2 places.
Wow!
I have a new Altoid case I just emptied, so I have more room for more memory cards.
One on hard drive, second one on NSA hard drive outside home, third copy in cloud, Google Cloud. Every picture.
Jeez, my pictures aren't that good. So.
Cool. Okay. We do have a question from the guy. I'm going to go through this because I have the new 150-600 noticed in the lens sounds like it's running all the time, and the camera switched on. This seems to be impacting on the battery life. I have the OM1 Mark 1. Mike?
Image stabilization.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the image stabilizer. It's your lenses shifting in there. But if it's impacting the battery life though, and it seems to be doing it all the time, then I might want to get it checked out.
I mean, I would take it back to the store probably and just get them to give it a run through, while it's under guarantee, while it's new, all these things. If there's a little doubt, I'm always saying if there's a little niggle, get it straight back and get someone to compare it to another one or whatever. So yeah, don't waste time, Christopher. Just get someone else's opinion on it. That's what I would say.
But I think 150 to 600 is normally use more power than another lens.
Yeah.
Maybe 300 use the same level of energy because both have image stabilization, both are long lens. I think it depends what you compare. If you have another telephoto lens and its impact on battery life, I think you should go to store. But if you have only short lens or wide angle lens, and this is first one of telephoto lens, I think this should be normal. This can be normal.
Yeah, because when you're looking at those massive long focal lengths, the whole the camera has to scan all the way down. The autofocus is running all the way down and back. It's a long way to go, and it's a lot of lenses, a lot of glass to get through, isn't it? So there could be that little bit more impact, I suppose. But as I said, if you're never sure, get it checked out. Hope that answers your question. Okay, now this is a bit of an open question, but it was funny. Which in-body stabilization setting best counteracts my incessant spring sneezing? All of them.
Yeah, that's an auto.
Have it all switched on always. As much help as you can get. Good one, John. That was very funny. We have an interesting question from Richard. I have never used the exposure highlight or shadow setting. What is it for? in Super Control Panel. Are we talking about the blinkies here, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Richard, how you doing? Yeah, probably the blinkies, the purple and orange highlights and shadow.
Right.
So if that's what you mean, Richard, what you're talking about there is it's another way to sort of have almost like a live histogram going while you're shooting, right? So if you blow out the highlights, or if they're blown out, it's going to be bright orange in your viewfinder, and your shadow areas are going to be like a purple, right? So it just gives you a quick kind of idea of where you're at. So it's another one of those personal things too, right? I don't personally like them, and I have a lot of shooters that love them, especially for birds, because if you're looking at, say, an eagle with a white head, it's an easy way to kind of bring those highlights down because you're seeing that orange right away. So that's what they're for, is just a quick, spot check of I'm overexposed, I'm back to where I need to be. And they work really well. And I believe we're the only company, if not, or one of the only companies, if not the only one, that has something like that, that works really well for birding and other types of shooting.
Yeah. What about you, PJ? What's your feeling?
I think Richard asked about spot metering highlights and shadow.
Spot highlight and shadow. See, Richard?
Right. I led you down the blinky path. I was the one that said
this one.
Okay. So
all right. Well, hey, everybody knows the blinkies now.
Yay, that's it.
Highlights and shadow.
Okay.
I have Polish menu. Maybe
you got Polish menu. Yeah. I love this. I love this.
That,
this
Richard?
is always hilarious. You've got to go to the English menu, top right.
Yeah, that's a little different. The highlight and shadow.
Yes.
Spot meter.
Okay, so
Good call, PJ.
Yeah, well done, PJ.
I will show you what about.
Please do.
If you use shadow,
I'm just going to take that question off a minute. Hang on, so I can, so we can see the question. There you go. See the screen. There you go.
If you use shadow, whole exposure will set on to don't blow up highlights and push highlights into shadow side. If you use highlights, you have metering in another direction to don't overexpose shadows. Camera will try take out whole details from shadow from under this metering point.
Cool. Excellent. I don't often use the spot and the highlight shadow, to be fair. I think I'm, it's one of those things where when you look at spot metering, it does actually meter the area is a very small amount, isn't it? You know what I mean? And you've got to have that focus point where you want it to meter quite specifically.
I think 2% is metering on sensor. And I think these two options is something what we have from DSLR times, when you can't see exposure in viewfinder. Now, I think the better option is use normal spot metering and put exposure on right on the left side by exposure control.
Cool beans. Thank you very much for that question. We have a lovely question for Mike. Mike, your macro photography tips talk last night sold out real fast. I love this. But this lovely gentleman missed it. Will you be recording that to stream later? Where will I find it? I think you basically got to do another talk, right, Mike?
Yeah, I'll probably do another one down the road. I do a lot of my presentations over and over throughout the year. So if you did miss it, you can find it again on the events page pretty soon. I did not record it or anything. So, and whether I'll do it to stream, I'm not sure. Maybe that's something I could do down the road. We'll see. But yeah, otherwise look for some classes down the road. I'll do it again. Definitely.
That sounds good. Yeah. Now, we've had a couple of questions in from David regarding macro, but they are a little vague. So I don't want, David, if you could put in a bit more specific. I'm interested in a macro setting normally used in the OMSYSTEM.Cameras. Do you want to know about focus stacking? Do you want to know how to set it up? I mean, can you drop another sort of question in and we'll see if we can get to that?
What lens, what objects?
Yeah.
How
what objects, what lenses? A little bit more for us. if you don't mind, my lovely. So we've got lots of hellos from Baltimore and Florida and Israel and South Florida. But we have another question here from Sonia. My question is, my back screen shows the photo I just took along with the histogram, etc. How do I get it to show just the photo full screen? Just press the info button, right?
Yep, that's your friend.
That's your best friend. It does so many things, whether you're in shooting mode or whether you're in playback mode, whether you're doing GND. There's loads of things that button does. It's like a multi-purpose button. But the point is when you're in playback, press info and it will show you a couple of different screens and you can pick the one you like the most.
Yeah.
I use it a lot in landscape. I set my camera up, blah, 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 do everything setting wise. And then I switch the info button off. So I have no info on the screen. And just so that you can check where everything is, where your perspective is, where everything's lying. And it's just a nice little preview. So as Mike says, the info button is your friend. Okay, let's scroll down. Keep your questions coming in. Let's have a look what we're doing here. Okay, so we've got lots of hellos. There we go. There's one from Jason. Jason says, I just upgraded my EM1 Mark III to the ON1 Mark II. Cool. I don't recollect the EM1 Mark III having Bluetooth. What are the differences between them?
3 had Bluetooth, right?
It had Wi-Fi, but did it have Bluetooth?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I think it was one of the first, but it did.
Yeah, I think obviously the Bluetooth connection's got, it's not the connection's got better because the connection's the same, but the information on the back of the screen is better and it tells you that the Bluetooth is connected better now.
It's a much more solid connection.
Yeah.
OM1 use different Bluetooth protocol because BLE. Bluetooth Low Energy, and you can use it to remote control by pilot.
Right. Okay. There you go, Jason. Just a little bit of extra information for you. Any more questions? Please drop us a line. Here we go. We've got one from Kathleen. Says, can my OM1 be tethered to an external drive instead of an SD card for speed more than anything else?
Only video by external recording like Atomos,
or something like that. Yeah, and you can't attach an SSD to an Atomos the other way. So
best thing to do is UHS-2 card. Just get the fastest card you can get.
Right.
V90.
Yeah.
So, Kathleen, the answer is no. It's interesting, that one, isn't it? Because obviously, I suppose because the camera's super fast and the cards are super fast. So, at 120 frames a second, like I assume you mean the sort of, because obviously the buffer is in the camera and stuff like that. So, the SSD isn't going to affect that either. But so the answer is no at this time. Who knows? Who knows what's coming in the future? I don't, just so we know. Okay. So Jason has added that question from the EM1, which we just spoke, so the EM1 Mark III, which you just spoke about, with the Bluetooth. What features are added in this area over the EM1 Mark III? I don't think the EM1 Mark II had BT. Sorry, I'm not really sure what we're doing here. Jason, keep that question coming in because you've dropped half again. Here we go. Here's another question. Here's a good one from Edward. Second question, what do you suggest in color space, Adobe RGB versus sRGB? What do you think, guys?
I think I tell everybody to use sRGB. Adobe gives you more colors, obviously, millions more colors.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, it depends on what you want to do. But if you don't have the monitor for it,
right,
you're not going to really utilize it. So if you do have the equipment for Adobe RGB, it'd be great. But most of your printers, especially at least in the United States, are set up for sRGB. Yeah. I did run into one recently that has the ability to do Adobe. And that's actually, I think a little more rare to see that, but there are companies that do here and there, but the majority of your print shops are sRGB. So it's kind of like you can work with it if you want, but it's not needed.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to say, oh, it's sort of future proofing if you shoot everything with RGB, but this was like 10 years ago and we're still not anywhere near having every single printer in the house at RGB, right? And you'd have to have so many ink colors in the printer for it to be able to do the RGB. So it is an interesting question, but sRGB, meaning small RGB, is perfectly capable, especially even for large prints. And I suppose it's what your long-term idea of doing with those images are. What about you, PJ?
But we must remember raw file is always Adobe. sRGB is only for JPEG file. In raw file, you can't use sRGB. Raw file is Adobe. I use always Adobe RGB because here is one ISO, second one is here. All is in Adobe RGB. Also, all new phone, iPads, MacBooks, etc. have minimum P3. This is bigger gamut than sRGB. It's smaller than Adobe, but all phone, in my opinion, can very good show Adobe RGB without problem. And always Adobe RGB can be converted to CMYK.
Yeah, CMYK.
If you you want print in professional printer, I have one there, big printer for A2 per size, Epson, and I print a lot, and this is why I always do in raw file in Adobe, and I work and I always work with color in post-production.
Cool.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah.
Nice. I hope that answers your question. We have the last question, which Edward also asked, was with Pro Capture SH2, do you need to hold the AF on in?
Yes, if you have autofocus on AF on. If not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like pressing the shutter button, right? It needs to be, if you're using sort of AF, then yes is the answer. You need to keep your finger on it.
Yeah, that's what keeps it engaged.
Yeah, exactly. This is a nice question. This is a macro question because we want you to be getting out there and taking pictures, and macro would be the obvious choice at the moment. Kathy says, for macro photography, if I want some extension tubes, will any of the brands work as long as they are for micro 4/3, not 4/3? Yes, Kathy. I mean, don't buy plastic ones because they do wear, right? I would say buy ones that have a metal mount. At least the quality of those will match the lens and the body that you're going to put them between. There are some really, really cheap options out there, but sorry, my dog is barking and I do apologize for that if you can hear her. But I would say, definitely don't buy the cheapest out there because they tend to be plastic and they can warp and they don't sit well on the front and back of the lens and the front of the body. So ones with metal mounts tend to be the better quality, and if you're going to do it, they're so much fun to use. So you were going to say, PJ?
I have some Chinese metal mount, no name extension tubes, and it's working well. It costs, I think, $25 from Amazon, I think, and it's okay.
Yeah. And do you do a bit of macro, Mike? You do your extension tubes and things?
Yeah. The only thing I found is I have a couple of different brands, Photodiox, and I have another one. It's a house brand here. The only issue I've ever had, and I don't want to throw a wrench in here, but if you're going to put like the teleconverters on the extension tube and then add that to the 60mm macro, I did have an issue with a couple of them fitting the extension,
right,
or fitting the teleconverter on it. The mount was a little bit tight. I don't know why,
okay.
But most of them work fine. Like the Photodiox work fine. It's just one that I've had an issue with. Otherwise, they're fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. We love that. Okay. We're back with Sonia. Sonia's back and says, my question is, on my OM1, my back screen shows the photo I just took along with the histogram. Have we not done that one already? How do I get to show the full screen? Yeah, we did that one, didn't we? You just press the info button.
Just press the info button. Yep.
Maybe Sonia's asked again. Okay, let's have a quick look at Stephen. Stephen, good evening. I bought a new OM1 Mark II yesterday. Well done. Congratulations. I'm sure you're going to love it. I am a street photographer looking to take advantage of the advanced people autofocus. What settings do you recommend if I'm walking quickly on the street? You like a bit of street photography, PJ, don't you?
Time to time.
Time to time. I've seen some of your stuff. You live in
mostly from Asia.
Yeah, exactly. What do you use when you're out doing street photography?
From my picture is from Asia, or mostly from very old EM1 or EM1 second. For OM1 second, I will use, of course, continuous autofocus with all point area with sensitivity +1. I will use, of course, people recognition, and also I will separate two AF button, one for autofocus for people or subject, one for point. If I don't want focus on face or people, I always can use second AF on or shutter button, it depends on you, as priority for point for autofocus. Of course, I will add some sequential setting. I think for OM1 second, the best idea for street photography is the lowest SH2. This is 12 and a half. Yes.
Mm. Do you do any street photography, Mike?
I haven't in a long time. I used to like doing more street photography. And it was, for me, it was just point and shoot. So, it was more, it wasn't as detailed as PJ. So, but New York, places like that, just, constantly watching people. So you can't not do street photography.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, I would say it's not like I love looking at people's images, right? Because there are some incredible and moody, amazing street images. I just find that I struggle with it. It's one of those things. I think the more you do, it would be better. But I'm always looking for different details when I'm out in the street. I'm not. I just have this thing. It's like, it's funny, isn't it? How you sort of warm to a genre of photography. And as I said, I was like you. I did a bit back in the day, but for me, it's definitely about being out in a field or
it's like anything, right? Yeah, you find
nobody.
You find certain things to look for with certain genres, and you kind of know what to look for. Certain signs with street photography, or windows, or things where you want people walking by or what have you.
Right.
And that just comes with doing it, But when you're removed from it, and right now I'm pretty removed from it.
Yeah, I do love that street
photography
where, like you say, it's reflections, or it's like it's not actually just a direct sort of portrait. There's a lot.
I love cities with reflections with water. It's beautiful. That's spring, right? With the rain, the reflections, good stuff.
Yeah. And that is exactly it. April showers. I mean, obviously everybody's heard the term. We're going to be coming into April. Not that we haven't had enough rain, and dew drops, wet water droplets on leaves. So when you're thinking about macro for the spring as well, anything, reflections, puddles.
Oh, puddles are great.
So great.
Yeah.
Glass, all that sort of that style of photography. I love it when it's warm and wet. It's actually quite nice out. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I think everything gets more saturated, right? And things like puddles, they kind of start and end, and you just kind of get like a piece of a picture in that puddle. It's really cool. So definitely look for that stuff.
Sure. Right. Okay. I hope that's answered your question. Kathy, I'm not sure what you mean. Can you tell me where I find this setting for infinity on the OM1? Oh, you do?
Yep.
Tell me what Kathy means.
I show you.
Are we talking about infinity on the lens?
Press that manual focus distance. Yep. If you change autofocus for manual focus, it's here. This is autofocus card, 7th card manual focus, and if you want to have on infinity always when you turn on camera, you should this option turn on reset lens, and this is how to put all lens to infinity always after camera is turning on.
Ah, there you go.
Cool.
I wasn't quite sure which you meant. PJ was straight in there. Thanks, PJ. You didn't have to second guess that one. Amazing. I love that. This is an interesting question from Jack, because obviously with our focal lengths, we double up. So if we have a 12 to 200, it's a 24 to 400. But Jack says, what denotes a wide angle lens for a 4/3? Well, we'd say micro 4/3 camera. It's interesting that, because anything under what the human eye sees start to become wide angle, right? That's the sort of official, sort of unofficial definition, is that we see at 49 degrees or 49 millimeter, and then anything under 49 then becomes wide angle, right?
Right.
But there's that sort of midway in between, isn't it, where people would say, well, 25, a 30 isn't wide, but then a wide angle is a 17 and beyond. But
right.
I mean, what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a 50 generally equivalent is normal, right? So anything wider is wide. So 25 in our system and below, right, would be considered normal to wide. So, so for us, it'd be 20 millimeter, right? That'd be the 40. You're 17, and then you start going extreme wide after probably what, 24. So after 12 millimeter, anything under that would be, your extreme wide, like your 7 to 14, your 8 millimeter. 9 to 18. Sure.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's interesting, as I said. So I do think, like, in the world of photography, forget the micro four thirds, in the world of photography, anything under 50 is wide.
But
we would consider, as I said, once you get to sort of 30, 20, that's when you start saying, that's wide.
I always picture it like 50 is normal. And then I picture 28 being like, you can get everybody into the dinner table, and then 24 kind of like that landscape.
A little bit of extra.
Yeah.
An aunt and uncle on both sides,
Yeah, right. You don't have to back up against the wall trying to.
What about you, PJ? What's your feelings on that?
I don't know what is denotes.
Denotes means like what is the widest?
What's considered?
Consider?
You can see me now from 714. This is the best lens for video, for sport, for reportage. I love this lens for very fast action and for video. But for landscapes, for architecture, for street photography, or sometimes only for travel photography, where I took picture of everything, it's 8 to 25. I think this is the best all-arounder wide angle lens, because if you think about classics angle of view in classic analog photography, 24, 28, 55, 5 to 50, this is all in this one lens. If you can use slower aperture like f4, this is the best lens for everything what you need to do with wide angle, from landscape to sport, reportage to street photo. If you need, also you can do some portrait in situation. This is very great and very good for everybody lens. But for sport and video, I use 740 because I have 2.8, and I like this small light leaks what 740 have if you have sun inside. Frame.
Cool. That's good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good answers, guys. Good answers. We've only got another 15 minutes left, so we're going to try and plow through them. I know this is like a strange question. It's not a strange question. Not every question is a good question, but it's one of those things where, jokingly, when I say, hey, Hi from Florida. Spring is bird time. Besides the OM1 Mark II, what cameras are good for birding? Another OM1 Mark II, which is what I was going to say to be funny.
I was going to say only OM1 Mark II.
Another one, right? So obviously it's really important to know that even the OM1's little sister camera, the OM5, still shoots for birding, right? You can still use the camera for birding. It doesn't, it's smaller and hasn't got the power and the speed of the OM1, but that doesn't mean to say that, if you wanted a smaller camera but still wanted to do nature and wildlife and birding, that camera does it. So yeah, it's always going to be, Edward, what your pocket can afford.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right. And ultimately the OM1 Mark I, the OM5, and EM1 Mark, 3.
EM1X.
If it was me, EM1X, right? Yeah, if it was me and I could afford it, then you'd get the same two, and then they would sit side by side, beautifully paired. So yeah, that is a nice simple one, but it's always down to the pocket. Okay, let's have a look. All right, okay, that's not a question. So Deborah has mentioned, I think the OM educational videos had an excellent resource last time there was an eclipse. So maybe there's one in the back catalogue somewhere that maybe you guys did in the States, Mike, probably.
Yeah, there could be. I'm definitely rusty, so I need to brush up on it in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I can't wait for your Facebook, see what's coming out and see those pictures. Timothy says, what lens are you planning to use to photograph the eclipse?
Yeah, so you're gonna laugh, but I'm gonna use the 300 millimeter with a 1.4 converter. So I'll be at about 840, and then I will use the 150 to 400 for the totality handheld.
Ooh, yeah. Handheld.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Ooh, and there was me thinking you were going to be 2 tripods, 2 cameras, 2 lenses.
Nah.
Oh, I love it.
It's only about, I think you only have a few minutes of totality, so
yeah. Okay, cool.
Some shooting
and you're shooting quite fast, right?
Yeah, I could even use a monopod, but I don't think I'll need it. Yeah.
How exciting. Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, there you go, Timothy. That's what Mike's going to be using, which I'm really interested to know. Okay, we got a question from Tom. Using the time-lapse feature, I'm thinking the way to set up the camera is all manual focus as well. Let the ISO float. Good idea.
It's tricky. I don't know if I'd let the ISO float on it. That's the only thing. Manual's fine, but the ISO, I think, because the light's changing so much, I think it might mess up your exposure a little bit. Definitely use spot metering.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'd let the ISO float when you're shooting the oh wait, I thought you were talking about the eclipse. Sorry.
No, time lapse. I'm thinking, what?
Whoa. I thought we were talking about the eclipse, Tom. I apologize.
I was like,
I'm like, no, I wouldn't let the ISO go.
Whoa.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, ISO, I'm changing my tune totally now. Yeah, auto ISO would be fine for the time lapse feature. Setting up everything manually, your aperture, your shutter speed, sure. That'd be absolutely fine. I apologize. I mean, I saw time lapse. I thought eclipse.
The thing about time lapse is if you're looking to the sky rather than a still object, with controlled light, then obviously there's going to be cloud cover and all sorts. So there will be a constant shift in exposure. And there is only one way to control it, really. Like you say, set the camera up fully manually, set the manual focus up as well. And that's what I do. I just let the ISO do what it needs to do to bring it in line. What about you, PJ?
I also let ISO floating, but we must remember we have very, very good feature in time-lapse mode, exposure smoothness. If you have difference between 2 frames under one of third of exposure, camera will smooth your exposure internal to have very good quality time lapse without this small blinking of 1 of 2 framings where camera can't change ISO or time shutter speed for 1 frame. I think this is a great feature to turn on when you do time lapse in different light condition.
Yeah, right, cool. I do love a time lapse. You know, whenever I watch a time, there are some super uber cool time lapses out there. I don't ever do enough. I did one in Scotland when on my last trip up there, and it was nice. It was a huge, and I think, whenever I do one, I'm like, it's always so good. And this massive storm came in and soaked the camera, and it caught it on the time lapse. It looked so good. It just went black, and it was. I do love it. I wish I'd do more.
If you want to see some really cool ones, Peter Bumgarden, one of our ambassadors, has some great time lapse on his website, on our site. But he does a lot of stuff in his blog where he explains settings and things like that. So, Creative Island Photo. It's a great place to check out.
Yeah, I mean, he's an uber awesome landscape photographer, right? There isn't anything he doesn't know about night, day, snow, you name the weather, he's out there. So that is a good tip, Mike. Appreciate that. Yeah, so that is creativeislandphoto.com, right?
Yep.
Cool. Excellent. Let's go and flick through. We're nearly getting over to the end of the show now. We've got a few minutes left. This is from Archaz. Not spring related, but technical. When using Pro Capture, why is the slowest rate for electronic shutter 25 frames a second? PJ?
Because you use SH2 Pro Capture. If you use normal Pro Capture with blackout, you can use 5, 10, 15, or 20 frames per second. Or you can buy OM1 second and use 16 or 12.
And 12 and a half. So you just got it in the wrong setting. That's all you need to do. Change the
show.
Yeah. You're going to show us? That's a good idea. Let's have a quick look. So yes.
One moment.
There we go. Now I can put this on one big screen, can't I? But I never know how to do this one. No, not that one. Hold on a sec. Wait. I've messed the controls up. Michela's going to kill me. He's going to come in and say, "What are you doing, woman? Why are you messing around?" How do I? Hold on a minute. Is that it? Yes, we're back.
Back to normal.
That is hilarious.
SH2, where you can use 25 or 50 if you have lens supporting 50. If you want lower, you can use Pro Capture normal mode. In this one, you can change what speed do you want. Maximum is 20, 15, 10, or 5 seconds. In SH2, you have 25 or 50 if your lens supporting it. In OM1 second, you can also use this 2 new speeds for SH2 and SH2 Pro Capture.
Amazing. Thank you. Michela, save the day again. She's in there saying, "What are you doing, Clare Harvey-May? Why are you not pressing the right buttons?" Thank God we have her. Oh, bless. Right. We have time for a couple more questions left. Just Tom says he's up in northern Maine and the eclipse will pass right over. They're in the perfect place. That sounds amazing. Diane also says praying for clear weather. Will be in Burlington VT area for the eclipse. I mean, this is all so good. I'm so excited. But also gutted that I'm actually not going to be there and we're not going to see one.
I'm in Cleveland, so the weather will probably be terrible.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, that's annoying then, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay, so we've got a question from Steve. Is there a way to make the focus point cursor in the EV brighter? Often the joystick moves and it's very hard to find. Is there a way to have it to recenter? Well, we know the recentering is just basically a double tap, right? That's pretty easy. So all you got to do is tap once, twice, and it will recenter. So that's nice and quick. But to make the focus point brighter, I think the answer is no on that, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked that. That's a great point. To make it brighter, change color, to be able to see during continuous autofocus, to have that point stay there so you know it's there, things of that nature. So definitely a lot of good info, and we appreciate that. And I agree, it'd be cool to make it a little bit brighter or even change the color sometimes. but we can't do it right now. So
yeah, because you can do it on things like the grid and stuff like that. You can change the colors and the brightness on the grid, but you know, all this stuff all goes into a big pot of, you know, is it feasible? Is there enough people that want it? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So these things are read and fed back, Steve, and it's always important to, you know, let us know your feelings and let us know, is there any way we can move forward on that? Excuse me. Okay. Let's have a look at Victor. I've been told that a rule for shutter speed is to use 1 over the focal length of the lens. Do I use full frame equivalent focal length to determine this? And how does IBIS and lens IS affect this rule? Are we talking for video or are we talking for shutter speed? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I was thinking, like, I was getting confused. Mike, go for that one.
Yeah, it's you definitely want to use the focal length that's the equivalent. Whenever you're, especially the zooms, whenever you're looking at the zooms in Micro Four Thirds, you want to think of the equivalent. So if I'm hand holding a lens, like say the 200 or the 100 to 400, which is a 200 to 800 equivalent, I want to think that I'm shooting an 800 equivalent when I'm zoomed out, so that if I'm using that shutter speed rule, I'm at 800th of a second minimum, right? The lenses and the bodies have, well, some of the lenses have stabilization as well as the body, but lenses like the 100 to 400 don't really have the sync IS, right? It goes more to the lens when it goes out, so you want to keep that shutter speed up. So the IBIS definitely affects the rule, but it also depends on what lens you're shooting. So you know, to answer that, it's not really a general in my opinion, because of lenses like the 100 to 400, or a shorter lens like a 7 to 14 or a 12 millimeter. On those lenses, the IBIS just changes that rule and like breaks it totally, because you can hand hold for like seconds. So it really depends on the focal length you're using. But I think when you're using a zoom, that's where you can really get away with some cool stuff, but you got to really think about that long focal length. But yeah, it affects it to, I mean, 8.5 stops on an OM12. You know, if you're shooting a lens like I don't know, use a 12 to 40 again. 12 to 40 with 8.5 stops is unbelievable. I mean, it's a 24 to 90 lens. You should be able to hold that, you know, shooting a waterfall with for a couple seconds. I mean, it's unbelievable. So
cool.
I don't know your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Since we have IBIS like now, I forgot about this rule. Long time ago. Time to time I use my analog medium format camera or some old small format camera, but also analog. And when I did do that, I need to remember this rule. But if with OM1 or if OM1 second, I forgot about this rule long time ago.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I was out one time a couple of years ago and I was shooting a couple of birds, had the 300 millimeter, and you know, obviously you have the sync IS, and so the IS is on the lens. If you shut it off on the lens, it shuts it in the body as well. And I was shooting these birds on branches, and I'm going, geez, why are my images out of focus? They're a little bit soft. And I had shut off the stabilization. I was at like a 20th of a second or something. I was like, you know, and you're so used to it, right, PJ, that you kind of get spoiled and you shoot totally differently after a while, Victor. So you'll definitely get used to it. It's pretty wild.
Okay, we've got one last question before the 8 o'clock mark, and it is from Doodlix. Says OM1 versus Mark II. Is there a speed difference when it comes to high-res processing? So we are talking about the OM1 Mark I versus the OM1 Mark II, not the EM1 Mark II. What differences have you found, Mike?
I haven't done too much of the high-res yet on the Mark II, but I don't think there's much of a difference on the actual processing of that. So you're pretty quick. I mean, you're still from the OM1 to the OM12. If OM1 was like, I believe it was 5 seconds versus the 10 from the
12. Yeah, it's like 12 seconds in the previous EM range, right?
So it takes 12 images, boom, puts them together. That's in the handheld. And if you have a fast card, I mean, we have a fast buffer on this one, but I don't think it's much faster with the, you know, with the algorithms now as far as the actual processing. At least not yet. Yeah.
No, absolutely, because the processing is the same, right, on both cameras. So exactly that. I think we have actually got time to squeeze in one more. Oh, Stephen, you talk about multiple exposure. That's quite a long one, that one, isn't it? Shall we tackle that and make that the last one?
Sure.
Because PJ, you could probably switch it on the camera. Please, could you talk about the two different multiple overlay exposure? It's really, really, I love this feature. Now, this is the feature that I used the last time I did street photography. I went to Paris, and so basically, it's multiple exposure is two images. You can't show because you're plugged in.
HDMI,
yeah. I used to do a tech talk on this. It's really interesting because basically you have multiple exposure, right? You can take a shot. Camera, you can move the camera around and then you take another shot and it lays it over the top. With overlay basically means if you have a raw image on your card, you can bring that image back. So you put overlay on, it looks at your card, you choose an image from your card, and then you can overlay and then you can take a shot. What does that mean? We think, well, I don't understand why. Say you took out an SD card that had a load of stuff pre-shot from somewhere else. I know, Paris, New York. And then you go to the desert or vice versa, right? You're in the desert and you want to put the Eiffel. This is how you do it. You can combine multiple exposures from one zone or one time to another time. You just have to have a card that has raw images on it. And it is so much fun. And you can keep adding and adding and adding and bring that image back with another, as long as it's raw, and then you can bring it back again and you can put 5 or 6 images on top of one. So it goes from a multiple exposure of 2 images to overlay, which means you can lay as many on. Obviously those images get thinner at the more you put on top of each other, but then there's also an opportunity to add gain, which gives you a bit more contrast. And then when you bring it into processing or onto your phone or whatever, you can then beef up the contrast a bit again. But it's so much fun to use. And I definitely think we don't talk about it enough because I think people don't understand like why, how it works. But as I said, as long as that image is a raw image on your card, as soon as you switch overlay on, it looks at the card, says, oh, and you choose which raw image, bring it on, and that you can keep saving it and it will keep using it. Have you tried it yourself, Mike?
Yeah, I've done multiple exposure a few times. I'd like to see more. Like a lot of people would like to see more multiple exposures, but you can actually use the overlay and grab the one you just did and kind of, use those 2 exposures over and over. But I've used it a few times on different things. Mostly, a lot of people use the moon, right? Zoom in on the moon, have a giant moon, and then, put it in an image where it's not giant. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I had a friend that used to do some really, really cool multiple exposure with the EM1 Mark II. And he would do JPEG, just shoot, and he would shoot local bands and shoot one image and then flip the camera upside down, shoot another one,
right,
and sort of have the singer in 2 shots and stuff like that. Really cool stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. What about you, PJ? Have you ever used the overlay facility?
10 years ago, sorry. I'm not a big fan of multiple exposure, but I know Marcin Dobas, our ambassador and also National Geographic photographer, is a big fan of this function and compiling 2 pictures in one raw file and use.
Yeah, I got a picture on my Instagram and it's of St. Paul's, and then we flip the image around and then we put my face on the back side of it, and it's just so cool. And then we, it was shot in a nice high key, so you lose a lot of the backside detail, but basically I've got St. Paul's on the back of my head, and I just love that shot. It's so much fun and great for city, but also great when you're doing landscapes in another area that you have a mind to then put those 2 areas together. And as I said, that's when the overlay function comes in. But we hope we've explained it a bit more. That's it. We've run out of time, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry for the technical difficulties in the beginning. Clare Harvey-May didn't know what she's doing. In fact, she still doesn't know what she's doing. I need a new lesson on StreamYard, I think. Probably best we all do. Lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be resuming normal business with an AMA session every month, coffee with the Clares. I believe Mike's going to be doing some bits. PJ's got lives and Zooms coming up. Check out the events web page. What else is coming up? Obviously, David will be doing his technical sessions as well. And as I said, business resumes as usual after launch. We're ready now to start a new year, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you to Mike for joining us.
Absolutely.
And thanks to PJ, as always, for joining us too. And a big thank you to Michela in the background for sorting out all the bits that I couldn't do.
Yeah, thanks, Michela.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, and see you again soon.
Take care.